Welcome to the first My Hoffs podcast. Each week, this podcast will accompany our Friday forecast, covering the 4 best bets of the college football weekend. I'm Editor-in-Chief, Mike Calabrese. For our first game this week, we had Mack Brown's Texas Longhorns traveling north of Stillwater to take on the Cowboys of Oklahoma State in their Big 12 opener. Texas opened as a 2.5-point road chalk, and with good reason. UT is fresh off a 66-31 beatdown of Ole Miss in Oxford. So why do I like the Longhorns here? Well, it's pretty simple. It comes down to their defense. 2 years ago, after a disastrous 5-7 campaign, Mack Brown made the wise decision of cleaning house, bringing in a new defensive coordinator. Goes down to Starkville, Mississippi, and poaches Mississippi State's defensive coordinator, Manny Diaz. Now, at the time, Manny Diaz was a rising star in the coaching ranks, coming off of a great 2010 season. Consider this. Early in the season, Cam Newton and the national champion Auburn Tigers come into Starkville, and they're held to a season-low 17 points. Fast forward in January of that season, they go to the Gator Bowl. They face another dynamic spread offense, this time Rich Rod's Michigan Wolverines. They were able to bottle up Denard Robinson and hold the Wolverines to just 14 points. So what happened last year? Well, it's a combination of the scheme not quite being right for the personnel and a lot of inexperience in their secondary. But if the first 3 games this year are any indication, those issues are far behind them, as they're 4th nationally in passing efficiency defense. Oklahoma State, on the other hand, has some major issues at quarterback. After spring practice, they decided to go with an 18-year-old freshman by the name of Wes Lunt. Now, Lunt started their opener against Savannah State, in which they won 84-0. Unfortunately, Lunt only took limited reps in that particular game. The following week against Arizona, he performed well, throwing for 4 touchdowns, but he did turn the ball over 3 times. In Week 3 against Louisiana Lafayette, he was injured, which opened the door for J.W. Walsh, who performed well. So now they have an issue at quarterback. Do they go with Luntz, who was their man from spring practice through fall practice through the first 2 games, or do they go with the hot hand and J.W. Walsh? Not a great time for a quarterback controversy headed into conference play. Offensively, Texas has to be excited for this matchup. In the Arizona game, Oklahoma State was unable to stop the run. Gave up nearly 200 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns. The 1-2 punch of Brown and Bergeron, as well as David Ash, who's known to run the ball from time to time, it's going to be really difficult for the Cowboys to slow down. A gambler's note here, since 2009, Texas, as a single-digit road favorite, is 4-2, including a 41-14 beating of Oklahoma State in 2009 as a 9-point favorite. So all these things considered, looking at the defense, looking at the running game, I really like Texas to cover this 2.5-point spread in Stillwater. I like the Longhorns 34-17. From a Big 12 opener to a former Big 12 member, the Missouri Tigers traveled to Orlando to take on the Central Florida Knights. Now this is a strength versus strength kind of game. Central Florida is at their best when they're running the football. Their 2 wins this year, they've averaged 188 yards on the ground per game, compared to their 1 loss against Ohio State when they could only muster 103 yards on the ground. Now Mizzou, for all their issues, they're 2-2 sitting here this season, already 0-2 in SEC play, but there are some bright spots. I was in the crowd last week when they took on the South Carolina Gamecocks, and they did a great job in terms of run defense. They were able to hold Marcus Lattimore, probably the most dynamic running back in the country, to under 100 yards. And if you go back to their SEC opener against Georgia, they were able to hold Georgia as a team to just 113 rushing yards. Now, Central Florida comes in 2-1 on the season with a quarterback that's already thrown 5 interceptions. So what you want to do, if you're the Tigers, take away that rushing game, make them one-dimensional, and put pressure on Blake Bortles. If Missouri can win the turnover battle, it won't matter if it's a healthy James Franklin or the redshirt freshman Corbin Bergstresser at quarterback. Bergstresser played very well against Arizona State a few weeks ago, played well in relief at South Carolina, scoring their only offensive touchdown. The guy can play. Franklin can play when healthy. It's just a matter of the defense stopping the run, winning that turnover battle. I think Mizzou's going to be able to do it. I really like the value at plus 130. Forget the points. Go with the upset special this week. Mizzou over Central Florida. I like a 23-16 score. And now for my sure thing pick of the week. Houston travels to Rice. They're minus 300 on the money line as a favorite. Go ahead, lay that, because there's no chance that they're going to lose this game. They scored 73 points last year against Rice, and Rice is just as bad this year on defense, clocking in at 119th nationally on that side of the ball. Really, the issue in this particular game is that Rice has been a live dog because of their quarterback, Taylor McHargue. the kid has been a Swiss Army knife for them the whole year. Running, passing, doing whatever he needs to do to keep this offense going. He's banged up, looks like he's not going to play, and Rice is going to be lost without him, frankly. Now, through the first 3 games, Houston has been, in a whirlwind. They fired their offensive coordinator after a disastrous open against Texas State in which they lose. They bounce back the next week, score 49 points in a losing effort against Louisiana Tech. And then last week they go out to Los Angeles and are totally outmanned by UCLA in Pasadena. Now, luckily, there's not a single player on Rice's defense who would be on the 2 deep for UCLA. David Pyland, the starting quarterback, is not going to run into those issues this week. And if you like a little bit of history, in 2010, in his second career start against Rice, threw for 282 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's comfortable against this team. Houston's going to get back on track. I like them to score at least 55 points. Wouldn't be shocked if they try to match that 73 from last season. Go with the Cougars. Thank me later. For our final pick here in Week 5, we have an over-under. I like under 55.5 in Florida International at Louisiana Lafayette. Lots of reasons to like this one. Familiarity, now that we're in Sun Belt play, defenses usually play a little bit better than they did in the first month. Florida International, 10 returning starters from last year's defense, finished really hot in conference play and in their bowl game. They held their final 6 opponents to 20 points or fewer in each of those contests. Now, coming into this game, they should be playing better defense. Offensively, they're going to have some issues. Their starting quarterback out for this game. Kedrick Rhodes, their star running back, has been hobbled with an ankle injury. He's going to give it a go, but his effectiveness is going to be something to follow in this particular game. The Raging Cajuns, admittedly, don't play as well defensively, but facing off against a freshman quarterback for the Golden Panthers should really benefit them. E.J. Hilliard was pretty good in relief, but it's going to be different. You're the man. You know it going into this week. There's going to be pressure on him to perform as FIU was a preseason favorite to win the Sun Belt. One other note here, the weather in central Louisiana is going to be hellacious. It's going to be rain, thunder, going to make it difficult to pass the ball. And to go over a number like 55.5, you're going to need some quick strike touchdowns. I just don't see either team producing that in these conditions. And finally, for the history buffs out there, the last 2 of 3 in the FIU Louisiana Lafayette series have gone under 56 points. I like that to happen here again. Louisiana Lafayette edges the Golden Panthers of Florida International 31-20. That's a wrap for our first podcast. For myhawks.com, I'm editor-in-chief Mike Calabrese. Thanks for listening.